Hello, Uta here. I think this is take 5. I'm talking about sex. So, I've had to have a lot of do-overs. But this is the artifact of the day. It is a beautiful, I think, Art Deco piece that it was a pendant. And this is just something that our husbands might have given us that we kept because it's a beautiful piece. But then thinking back on that moment when he purchased it, we're saying to ourselves, oh, he wanted to wear that himself. Uh, hmm. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he actually was in a period of his adulthood when he wasn't fantasizing about himself as a female. After all, Nettie told me that it wasn't constant. He told me that he didn't feel this way all the time. Uh, and that was because he was feeling guilty at that moment. This was shortly after my discovery of his diaries in 1992. I said, well, I feel like our whole marriage has been a sham. You've been wanting to be me this whole time. And he said, well, I didn't always feel it so strongly. Sometimes it didn't bother me at all. And so when we got married, I wasn't thinking about that. Now, the psychologists who diagnose what was called transsexualism, I, I call it cross-sex ideation. They are kind of writing the scripts. They're writing the scripts, meaning prescriptions, and the script, meaning the lines that everybody is supposed to say. Because, of course, you're supposed to dutifully try having sex differently, where your wife is pretending to be a man and pretending to be, dominant and rough. And so that your husband can be passive and feel this rapture, which is very inauthentic. That's why I'm overacting it. You can see I'm really trying to plow through this because this is something like take 5 on Uta's sex talk. But it's come up in my Facebook group, which is with, I don't know, maybe up to 30 trans widows who are mostly just really recent. There are a few of us older ones. I feel very good about giving advice to younger women. And I really, really recommend the interview with Tracy Shannon on Benjamin A. Boyce channel. He broke his policy of never interviewing trans widows. He was trying to be so careful and polite of the cross-dressing husbands, the men who are ideating a female persona for themselves. He felt uncomfortable as a journalist to have women talking about their narcissistically abusive and financially abusive now ex-husbands. But, one point I want to make actually is that the women who stay together with their cross-sex ideating husband typically are very dominated by him. And in every interview that I've seen of the couple that stays together, which is probably a half a dozen, the man who ideates himself as a female is answering all the questions, answering for his wife, because obviously he projects himself into his wife's body. It is a very jarring, uncomfortable, feeling like being haunted or something sensation to know this about your husband or your ex-husband, hopefully. But I just need to be very clear here that the requests and suggestions and urgings of these so-called mental health professionals, just like Ruth the Charlatan, as in my book, In the Curated Woods, true tales from a grass widow. Ruth the charlatan, who was the groomer of my then husband Nettie, suggested to me that I needed to try, in order to keep our family together, I needed to try out this sexual role play. And I said to myself, well, first of all, I'm not interested. I think this would damage me psychologically. It is a type of abuse. I don't care to take on some kind of dominatrix role or start using what's called a strap-on or do something that is a fantasy in my husband's head, which I'm just not interested in. And stop using the term vanilla sex. Heterosexual sex where both people are getting to climax and enjoying with all of their five senses all of the closeness between each other and within a monogamous relationship are doing something that is actually sweet and sacred and wonderful, and it should not be diminished with this kind of derogatory label. This is from a very kink-oriented, unwell psychology. And if you don't believe this, go look up Alfred Kinsey, John Money, and Volkmar Sigush, who were the originators of this idea that there are no sexual boundaries. They are well-known, published, decades past researchers into human sexuality. And they have been re-examined and found to have been child sexual molesters and to have documented their unhealthy practices involving minors. They documented them in photographs and things like that. And this is, I mean, I can't, it's just, it's not natural, it's inauthentic, and it is from abusive movies, television shows. It's really pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable, especially for women. And so the thing is, I posit that men like Nettie and men like I'm hearing about from my new trans widows cohort, those men need to look into their past and see if there's something they need to work out with a different kind of therapist, which involves themselves as children being subjected to sexual abuse. Nettie was certainly subjected to physical abuse by his father. He was beaten with a belt. His younger sister was also beaten. In fact, they stuck books in the backs of their pants and ran around saying, "Now you can beat me." And I think that's probably what put a stop to it. Them saying, well, if I have a book down my pants, then you can't hurt me. And as a teacher, as an experienced early childhood specialist, I can say that this is why spanking on the buttocks, I think that sometimes they had their pants taken down. This is a psychosexual punishment. We have to control children's behavior and guide them differently with practices like timeout and like removing favorite material objects from them when they are behaving in an unsafe or untoward way. Spanking is not the way to go for parents. So if you are finding out that your husband suddenly is on this path after watching really unacceptable pornography that objectifies and humiliates women, in which your husband is seeking to revisit some kind of humiliation from his childhood in a psychosexual form, don't participate in that. Get yourself out of it. It's very hard. If you can only move down the hall for financial reasons, it's important to do that. And then figure out the next steps. You might need to get help from relatives. I think one of my only regrets probably is that I feel that I needed to make it more clear to my parents that I was in dire need of financial assistance from them. They were well off, and I was very hardworking, worked 3 jobs and then 2 jobs, and went to school, all while keeping all these other balls in the air. But don't do this. If you're a therapist, don't start suggesting to women that they should play these roles. Don't even use the word kink shaming. Kink is unhealthy. This is not healthy. Just look up Sam Brinton. Just look up Leah Thomas now. Not healthy. Keep your body and your soul and your mind aligned, and be well always.